want to start by thanking Victor for having me back. It's been just under a year since the last time I spoke here. This is my second time speaking here at Temple Buddhist Center, and being here is a real reminder of how things have changed since the last time I was here. When I came in last time, I entered this amazing room full of wonderful, smiling, welcoming faces. And today it's very different. I'm speaking to you, looking at this wonderful, welcoming camera lens and imagining your warm, welcoming face here with me. But I know that you are on the other end of this. And so that is reassuring and warming to me. So I wanted to talk about that sense of connection. That's really the theme of talk. And Victor has already mentioned today so many of the challenges that we're facing. And I noticed that when the stay-at-home orders started to be announced, that along with them I kept seeing these sort of urgent reminders from healthcare professionals, both those focused more on the physical side and more on the mental side, to remind us all that being separated, keeping physical distance and these social distancing protocols did not mean to isolate yourself emotionally. And these reminders were coming with a sense of urgency for good reason, because we know through millennia of human experience that humans are some of the most social of creatures, and the story of human evolution and human survival has been through community, the story of humans surviving and thriving together. And so that's why I wanted to visit this topic of Sangha, of the community, of the spiritual community. Historically, community has been very much defined by physical proximity. The people we could see every day, that we could run into on a regular basis, interact with physically, directly on a regular basis. And it's very tempting to think that suddenly COVID has put a stop to that. But in a way, we've been experiencing these transition to an expanded community that goes beyond geographic and physical boundaries for a long time. Every time humans have discovered a way to travel more widely, whether that was through the wheel and the wagon, or through trains and cars and airplanes, and now through the internet, through the telephone, through all these amazing communication and travel technologies that we've developed, the sense of what constitutes community has evolved and changed. And the same way that we are, as humans, are adaptable, we've adapted the sense of community. And you may have noticed, even if you're very new, this is your first time really delving into Buddhism, that we started the topic, the morning, with taking refuge in 3 jewels of Buddhism. As you get more familiar with Buddhism, you realize that a lot of things in Buddhism are conveniently presented in numbered lists. You have 4 Noble Truths, Eightfold Path, 5 hindrances. I mean, the lists go on and on. But there are only 3 jewels, only 3 things that are given this kind of extra importance. The Buddha, and that's not just the historical Buddha, but as Victor mentioned and we talked about prior to the refuge prayer, that's the wisdom nature, the true self that we all carry within us, that allows us to act optimally in the world. And then the Dharma, the teachings, the wisdom that has been gathered through millennia that helps us reveal and find and contact and act on that wisdom nature, that Buddha nature. And then the Sangha, the spiritual community. And so we know, because it made this list of 3 jewels, that community is important. And I like to think about, why are these things listed as jewels? What is it that makes a jewel important or special? And one of the things that separates a jewel from just a rock that we find on the ground is that it's cut in a certain way. It has these facets, it has these faces. And so we can see it on so many different sides. It has so many different perspectives, and each of these facets, each of these faces catches the light in a different way. It shows us a different aspect of the light of Buddha nature. And I think it's also a jewel because we can't affect the Dharma and the Buddha in the world around us without the Sangha. Without the Sangha, the Buddha and Dharma would have little reason to exist. And so it's through these connections, it's through this community that those things take place in the world and actually have an impact. And so a couple of facets that I'd like to explore this morning of the Sangha are first considering the Sangha as this thing, this jewel that we have access to. And teacher Thich Nhat Hanh likes to refer to the Sangha as the roots of a tree. And we know that roots are important. I mean, without the roots, the tree has little chance of staying upright for an extended period of time. And so those roots just provide, at a very basic level, physical foundation. They hold the tree up. But we also know from millennia of observation and from science that roots are doing so much more. They are providing preventative support to the tree, providing it stored nourishment and protective chemicals that keep it going. But they're also storing that nourishment for the hard times, for when there's drought or insects or things that are affecting the tree. And so they're also a source of healing for when the tree has faced and weathered that trauma. And so we can look at the roots of Sangha as something that can provide us all of those things. Often when we're weathering trauma, whether it's something large like COVID that's affecting so many of us, or if it's something that we feel is just affecting us individually, we can find sustenance. But if we don't remember our roots, we can fall into this tunnel vision of thinking that we're the only person experiencing this, the only person that understands this feeling, that's going through this. We think everything's easier for everyone else. And so that can lead us to isolate more, to cut ourselves off from our roots. And that creates a negative feedback cycle where we then feel even more isolated and fall deeper into that tunnel. So staying connected with the roots can remind us that we're all in this together. And ironically, maybe paradoxically, COVID is helping remind us that we are all in this together. Everyone's facing these challenges. And so in that way, it may be slightly easier to remember the roots of our Sangha. So seeing the Sangha as a thing that we have access to, as these tree roots, is one facet. But another facet is seeing Sangha or community as a verb, as an action, as something we do. And I like this idea that teacher Shinzen Young presents when talking about having a full and complete mindfulness practice. He talks about the 4 pillars of practice. And the first is just formal meditation, actually sitting down and doing the work to look at the nature of the mind-body deeply. And the second is retreat practice, and that is going into seclusion for a specific amount of time in order to do this work with more intensity. But the other 2 pillars are giving support and getting support. If you're doing the math with me, that means 50%, half of the pillars involve connection. They involve Sangha, interaction with others around us. And so those are the actions of Sangha, the giving support and getting support. And with stay at home, we may have to really think about in new ways. We may Maybe this jewel has shifted and we're seeing a different side of the Sangha than we had before. And so we can stop and look and say, what does giving support look like right now? Is it just sending a friendly text to someone? And maybe it's as simple as just saying, hey, I'm thinking of you. Maybe it is attending some kind of community meeting virtually. Maybe it's just taking time to pay attention. One of the most basic ways that we show that we care about something or someone is just to pay attention, just to stop. And that could include just paying attention to ourselves, giving support to ourselves. And then there's getting support. There's realizing that maybe we are in a position where we need to call upon the roots of the tree to send us that nourishment. And maybe it's attending something like this, listening to a positive message. Maybe it's listening to someone else offer us just a healing ear. Maybe it's receiving that text that someone is thinking about us and just accepting that into our heart. And so just taking some time to think about the ways that we're giving and getting support, and knowing that very often we have a tendency to do one of these more than the other. We're just more accustomed either to being in a caretaking role, offering nourishment, and maybe we're not as good as accepting it. Maybe we're very used to sitting back and letting the nourishment come to us, but we're a little awkward, we're uncomfortable with how to listen or how to pay attention to others. And this was really brought home to me just last night in my own life, that I also face this imbalance, and it can be hard for me to realize that I need to receive nourishment. I'm very often in this sort of facilitating, coaching, teaching role. I work as a professional educator as well as working with people around spirituality and mindfulness, and it can be hard to take that hat off and realize that I need support, and I am suffering sometimes too, and I just finally had to realize I was trying to keep this strong face, and just turned to my husband and was like, I can't do this all alone. I'm trying to pretend that I'm strong and I can do it, but I need to admit that I need you to listen. I need other people around me. And so it just brought home to me the importance of finding this balance between this action of the roots, giving and getting support. And so that's what I want to leave us with this week, is that an encouragement to sit back and look at what our stay-at-home Sangha looks like now. What is this new facet of this jewel that we call Sangha revealing to us? What's the light that's shining forth? And my sincere hope is that as we all look at this and explore it, we'll find that our Sangha has new things to appreciate that we didn't notice before, maybe before stay-at-home was a reality. And that we will find that the roots of this spiritual social network, the roots of our Sangha, are actually much deeper, more nourishing, and more resilient than we expected.